Is dark academic fantasy my new genre? I just finished reading Emma Wang's Blood Over Brighthaven and was honestly surprised with that I didn't really love it, but also couldn't put it down. So, hello, my name is Zach, and on this channel, I mostly review science fiction and fantasy books with a delve into everything else, such as comics and manga. But with many online reviews and the social media buzz, I guess you could say, I picked up and put my hold on the library for Emma Wang's Blood Over Brighthaven, and yeah, it was a book where in a sense, it was kind of mid-tier for me. I'm in the grimdark kind of fantasy phase, but at the same time, I couldn't stop reading about it. So it was definitely a book that was a bit polarizing, even for myself, because there were so many pros and cons. There were parts I really loved and parts that a bit dragged, but at the same time, the pacing and the writing was honestly pretty darn good, and I couldn't stop reading it. So, to other contexts, the Emma Wang is a well-known author for her other novel, The Sword of Kaigen, and yes, it is unfortunately still sitting in my Audible library from the last time it was on sale. I picked it up, but just haven't read it. So I was a little hesitant to give this a go because I hadn't read any other work, and I think that's maybe her more well-known work, The Sword of Kaigen. But at the same time, on the strength of the author being so well regarded for The Sword of Kaigen, I was like, yeah, let me just read this because my hold came through. So that kind of maybe took precedent over getting through the backlog in my Audible library of stuff I've honestly already purchased. But because it's the due date, that has that sense of urgency to finish it before it gets returned to the library. And yeah, so the book itself, it follows our main protagonist, who's there's a little semi-spoilery, a female wizard, magic user, I guess you could say. She's a sorceress. And in this world, magic exists, and she gets into this academy, this school of magic where they develop, I guess it's sort of like a school. She's on a project. There's definitely academic vibes here where she's on a project to accomplish this task and use the magic to power the city. So that's kind of this steampunk-ish world where magic powers the city. And this is maybe spoiler, but maybe not, because it happens so early in the novel to already start talking about things I didn't enjoy, is that one of the early chapters, it follows this structure, and I don't say trope, but the plot structure that you see in movies and books where you're just dropped right into the action. And what we get in the first very chapter is the POV for another race where they're running across the ice, and this magical power, this thing sucks them up. They call it the blight. So the blight sucks them up and just destroys the people. And two of them make it over the finish line, make it through the barrier, and they get into the world of technology, into the city. So it honestly reminded me a bit of almost like Attack on Titan, where they're the outcast. And that's where I was going at first, that, okay, this is a cliche trope of the persecuted natives, and then you have this sprawling city of magic that was, as we've learned, built on the backs of the natives. So they are kind of the underclass. So this also vibes of Sanderson, where the singers are the Parshendi, the Parshmen. They're kind of like the working class slaves, in a sense, of the society. I mean, that's maybe in a sense, but yes, they are. They're the lower class. They're just kind of indentured servants. And that's what we have going on here in Blood Over Brighthaven. The natives, just like the singers, or the listeners in Stormlight Archive, the Parshendi, they're also the working class natives. And then you have these conquering class that are the magic users and are basically subjugating them and making them work in these menial jobs. So right off the bat, we're also introduced, besides our magic user, to another the working class of second class citizens in this world, and he's a janitor. And then through some situations, he becomes the apprentice assistant to our main female mage magic user. So yeah, that's what maybe also, I don't want to talk too much about the dislikes, but of course a love relationships develops between our female main character magic user and the native janitor, who turns out to, of course, be once you get to know him, smarter and more intelligent than society gives him credit for. And together they do magic and discover a secret to the world, which, not a spoiler really, because it's literally, you can see it coming in like chapter 3 or 4, that magic thing that happened in the very first chapter is what's powering the magic throughout the rest of the series. And so it wasn't a big twist, and that's maybe probably, I mean, obviously I guess it's intentional. That is very on the nose, that what's the blight is actually the magic systems. That's how they draw their power from the other world, which is just the other world of the natives. So it was not a huge reveal. I saw it coming from a mile away, but there are some interesting reveals, and that's where I like, I guess, to talk about the positives is the magic system was very structured. So in the early chapters where they're talking about the magic system and she's first kind of proving herself, the magic system is almost like coding. And that was so cool to me as someone who with a computer science degree, who's in like data and analytics, when she talks about the magic system, that in this world, instead of writing things by hand, they like use a computer-ish typewriter and they code things out. And she even talks about how when she's writing the spell, that she uses like variables that she can name certain parts of the spell, like whatever she wants, and then refer to it later, which is, if you've ever done coding, that's exactly how you code. You can assign things variables so that you can refer to it later. And it seemed like that was what we were going to get, because this happens really early where we talk about the magic system, and she starts, she's of course a prodigy because she's our main character, and she starts coding this spell, and she's faster than anyone else, and she has more complex and interesting ways to write her spells. And I was just engaged so much about the magic system. And that's, again, maybe a negative, is that we don't really go into it later. So what the big, the reveal is that the magic system is powered by people, by the natives, and that becomes the focus rather than the coding and the cool structure of the magic. So it's probably, of course, a better narrative choice that we don't delve into the specifics, that we're not stuck just talking about the rigid system of magic, but actually just the application of the magic. But I wanted to learn more about the magic system. I like that when she described it, so we never really hear about it much again, like the mechanics of how it's written and created. And that's maybe another pro and con, is that as we learn about this coding magic system, we get peaks of how it came to be, and the founders of the magic system, that is obviously this crazy corrupt system. And I wanted to hear about them. So who are these bad men that founded this magic society, and how did they discover it in the first place? I was hoping more insights into this crazy world that's being built, but we just deal mostly with the present, which is, again, good and bad. You can see it from both sides of, what do you like in your fantasy novel? Do you want to stay grounded with the main characters in the present and not have all these flashbacks and nostalgia trips and lore dumps? But I was itching for the lore dumps. I wanted to see what happened, how we got to this society, and we're not really given that here. So it sticks to, again, the YA-ish side of things, where it's more about the relationships of our two main characters. They're kind of cliched, get together, break up, get back together, and realize that, yes, the working class are actually way smarter, and then we give them credit, we as in the ruling class gives them credit for, and if only they understood their language and culture, they would see what they see. And so it was a little cliche. They even call it out in the book that she just starts in this academy, and then within 3 months she discovers the deep dark secret of how the magic powers the world. And they do call it out a little bit early that obviously she's not the first one. She is, yes, a genius, but in the hundreds of years or 100 years that they've had this magical society, that yes, others have discovered the secret as well. She's not that special, but it was a little cliche a little bit that the natives understood this fundamentally. And our main character Tamil, he had this inclination that that's what's happening, that the blight is actually the magic system in use. And So it feels like they know what's going on, but the ruling class maybe just doesn't want to admit it. So that's maybe the dynamic that's going on here, that they're kind of living in their society on the backs of the working class, and they just kind of turn a blind eye to how it all works under the hood, which is what our main character is on her righteous journey to correct that and free the people. So it's, again, cliche-ish. You could see where a lot of the plot lines were going, except the final ending. I definitely won't spoil that here, but the final ending was not what I expected, because things were so cliche. I really expected things to go one way, and let's just say it didn't. So some things happened, and yeah, it's not like grimdark. This is not the First Law trilogy, which I read and loved recently, but it's definitely a different ending, a different choice for the ending, and where this could potentially go as a second book in the series. But again, the other positives was just the writing. So even though I was groaning internally as we delved into the love interests and how they're the star-crossed lovers, and he just doesn't understand me and our culture, and there's culture class, but I couldn't stop reading it at the same time and read it super fast. I read it in a day and a half, so finished in 2 days. Even though I talked about so many criticisms and things that maybe didn't work, but the writing was really good. The pace was good. I wanted to see what was happening, and maybe, like I said, what I hoped was going to happen with the reveals, or we'd get lore dumps or more into the magic system. But there was enough magical powers, the few like magic fights that happen, but it's definitely a character-driven, like YA-ish, mid-tier YA, like young, not really young adult, but not, again, grimdark epic fantasy either. It's kind of that straddles that line, but also in the subgenre of dark academia, because it happens in this magic academy with our female main character protagonist doing her research, understanding things, and finding out secrets of the world. So if that sounds like something you might be into, I would definitely recommend this. It's not as like dark and swords and sorcerers and dragons like classic epic fantasy, but it definitely has that female protagonist using magic in an interesting way, kind of Sanderson-esque, with the subjugation of the lower class natives by the ruling class magic users. So interesting novel, interesting book. Still, again, a good book that surprisingly, even though I have all these criticisms, it was just a good book still. It was a great read, a good kind of summer beach-ish read, and I do recommend it. So do check out M.L. Wang's Blood Over Brighthaven if that sounds like something you would be interested in. So thanks for watching this video, and be sure to check out the other videos on my channel for more fantasy reviews, a few science fiction, and a little bit of comics, manga, and everything in between. So thanks for watching, and have a great day.